The unexpected assignment. Commander Sarah Chen stood at rigid attention before Admiral Harrison's hologram, her dark eyes fixed on a point just above his flickering blue form. The space station's artificial gravity felt heavier than usual as she processed his words. "You want me to do what, sir?" "You heard me correctly, Commander. You're being reassigned as personal escort to Princess Tilara of the Nixian Empire." The Admiral's hologram crackled with static. "This is a direct order from Fleet Command." Sarah's jaw tightened. She'd spent the last 5 years commanding deep space reconnaissance missions, tracking pirate activity along the frontier. Now they wanted her to play babysitter to some alien princess. "With all due respect, sir, I'm a combat veteran, not a diplomatic courier. Surely there are better qualified." "That's precisely why you were chosen, Commander," Harrison cut in. "The Nixians specifically requested our best. This peace treaty hangs by a thread, and Princess Tilara's safe passage to the signing ceremony is paramount." Sarah suppressed a sigh. The Nixians were notorious for their telepathic abilities and their general disdain for humans, whom they considered emotionally volatile and intellectually inferior. Their request for a human escort was suspicious at best. "When do I meet her?" "She's already here." Harrison's hologram smiled grimly. "Docking Bay 7. And Commander, she's not what you might expect." The transmission ended, leaving Sarah alone with her thoughts. She grabbed her duty bag and headed for the docking bay, her boots echoing against the station's metal floors. Her mind raced through everything she knew about the Nixians, a proud species of humanoids with iridescent skin and powerful telepathic abilities. Their empire had been at odds with the human alliance for decades until recent peace negotiations began. Docking Bay 7's doors hissed open, and Sarah stopped dead in her tracks. Standing by a sleek diplomatic shuttle was the tallest Nixian she'd ever seen. Princess Tilara stood nearly 7 feet tall, her skin shifting between deep purple and midnight blue, like the surface of an oil slick. But it was her eyes that caught Sarah's attention. Solid silver, without pupils, and currently fixed on Sarah with undisguised contempt. "So this is what the mighty human alliance sends to protect me." Tilara's voice was musical, but sharp with derision. "A single female barely tall enough to reach my shoulder." Sarah felt the princess's telepathic probe brush against her mental shields, standard issue for all Alliance officers dealing with telepathic species. Tilara's silver eyes narrowed at the blockade. "Commander Sarah Chen," Sarah introduced herself, keeping her voice neutral. "I assure you, Your Highness, my height has never prevented me from completing a mission." "We shall see." Tilara glided forward, her ceremonial robes floating around her as if in water. "I find it curious that humans rely so heavily on physical prowess when their bodies are so limited." Sarah bit back a retort. "This is going to be a long assignment. The shuttle is prepped for departure. We should." "I will not travel in that primitive vessel," Tilara interrupted. "My personal ship is waiting in orbit. You may pilot it, assuming you can comprehend its superior technology." Sarah's patience thinned. "Your Highness, Alliance protocol requires." "Your protocols mean nothing to me, Commander. Either we take my ship, or I refuse to leave this station." For a moment, Sarah considered calling Admiral Harrison to deal with this, but she knew how that would look. First hour on the job, and she couldn't handle one stubborn princess. "Very well," Sarah conceded, though her tone made it clear this wouldn't become a pattern. "Lead the way." Tilara's ship was a marvel of Nixian engineering, its hull seeming to shift and flow like liquid metal. The interior was organic, almost alive, with surfaces that responded to touch and thought. Sarah had to admit it was impressive, even as she struggled to find familiar reference points in the alien design. "The navigation interface is telepathic," Tilara announced, settling into what appeared to be a command chair. "I doubt you'll be able to." Sarah's hands found the manual override controls hidden beneath the main console, a standard feature on all Nixian vessels, but they rarely advertised it. The ship hummed to life under her touch, displays flickering with information in both Nixian and standard. Tilora's surprise leaked through her usually perfect composure. "How did you?" "I make it my business to understand the ships I fly, Your Highness," Sarah replied, allowing herself a small smile. "Shall we begin our journey?" The princess's expression darkened, but Sarah detected something else beneath the anger, curiosity, perhaps, or respect. As they broke orbit, Sarah reviewed their flight plan. The journey to the peace conference would take them through several contested sectors, including the notorious Scarlet Expanse. Pirates, raiders, and who knew what else would love to get their hands on a Nixian princess. "Your Highness," Sarah began, keeping her eyes on the controls, "I need to know if there are any specific threats I should be aware of. Anyone who might want to prevent you from reaching the conference." Tilora was silent for so long that Sarah thought she might not answer. Finally, the princess spoke, her voice uncharacteristically quiet. "There are those among my people who oppose peace with humans. They believe your kind to be dangerous, unpredictable. They fear what might happen if our civilizations truly unite." "And what do you believe?" Those silver eyes fixed on Sarah again, but this time the contempt was tempered with something else. "I believe that fear often masks deeper truths, Commander, but do not mistake that observation for trust." Sarah nodded, turning back to the controls. As the ship entered hyperspace, streams of light stretching past their viewport, she couldn't shake the feeling that this mission would test more than just her combat skills. It would test her patience, her understanding, and perhaps even her preconceptions about the Nixians themselves. What she didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that their journey would soon take a turn that would challenge everything they thought they knew about each other and about themselves. The ship sailed deeper into space, carrying its two passengers toward a destiny neither could have anticipated, and somewhere in the darkness between the stars, forces were already moving to ensure they never reached their destination. Dangerous detour. The distress signal pierced through the ship's telepathic interface like a knife, causing Tilara to wince. Sarah's hands flew across the manual controls, already triangulating the source before the princess could voice an objection. "We're not stopping," Tilara declared, her silver eyes flashing. "This is clearly a trap." Sarah's fingers paused over the controls. "Maybe, but what if it isn't? Your human sentimentality is precisely why my people consider your species a liability." Tilara rose from her command chair, her iridescent skin shifting to a deeper purple, a sign of agitation. "We have a mission, Commander." "We do," Sarah agreed, her dark eyes meeting Tilara's metallic gaze. "But I also took an oath. Space law requires all vessels to investigate legitimate distress calls." "And you're certain this is legitimate?" Sarah's lips curved into a slight smile. "No, but I'm certain I can handle whatever's waiting for us." Before Tilara could protest further, Sarah adjusted their course. The Nixian ship responded beautifully, its liquid metal hull adapting to the new trajectory. They dropped out of hyperspace near an asteroid field, where the distress signal originated from a small mining vessel trapped between two massive rocks. "Scanning," Sarah announced, though she kept one hand near her sidearm. Something about this didn't feel right. The mining vessel's power readings were inconsistent with a ship in distress. Tilara suddenly stiffened. "Commander." The warning came too late. 3 ships materialized from behind the asteroids, their stealth systems dropping as they moved to surround the Nixian vessel. Pirates, but not the usual kind. Their ships bore the distinctive markings of the Crimson Collective, an elite organization known for taking high-value targets. "Impressive tech for common thieves," Sarah muttered, already initiating evasive maneuvers. "Your Highness, I need you to access the weapon systems." Tilara was already interfacing with the ship telepathically. "Perhaps you're not as naive as I thought, Commander." The first pirate ship opened fire, but Sarah had anticipated the attack. She rolled their vessel in a maneuver that should have been impossible for a ship this size, causing the pirates' shots to miss widely. Tilara's eyes widened slightly, the first sign of genuine surprise Sarah had seen from her. "The weapons are ready," Tilara announced, her voice tight with concentration. "Hold them," Sarah ordered, diving between two asteroids. "They're expecting us to fight back. Let's show them something new instead." "What are you?" Tilara's question cut off as Sarah killed their main power, letting the ship's momentum carry them into the asteroid field. The liquid metal hull rippled, adapting to minimize their signature. "They're using standard targeting systems," Sarah explained, her voice calm despite the asteroids drifting dangerously close to their hull. "If we can mask our energy signature..." Understanding dawned in Tilara's silver eyes. "They'll lose us in the field's mineral interference." The pirate ships prowled the edges of the asteroid field, unwilling to risk their larger vessels in the dense cluster. Sarah guided their ship deeper, using minimal thrusters and letting the natural gravitational pull of the asteroids do most of the work. "Your species has a reputation for recklessness," Tilara observed, watching as Sarah threaded them between two spinning rocks with barely a meter to spare. "I'm beginning to understand why." "Reckless implies we don't calculate the risks," Sarah replied, her focus never wavering from their trajectory. "Humans are actually quite good at math when our lives depend on it." A ghost of a smile touched Tilara's lips, gone so quickly Sarah might have imagined it. "The pirates are splitting up to search the field." "Good, that's exactly what we want." Sarah's hands danced across the controls, plotting a complex course through the asteroids. "Your Highness, I need you to prepare for my signal. When I say now, hit their lead ship with everything we've got." Tilara's skin shifted to a deeper blue, a color Sarah hadn't seen before. "You're going to use the asteroids as cover for an ambush. Unless you have objections." "No." Tilara's voice held a new note. "Respect, perhaps. I find your strategy intriguing." They waited in silence as the lead pirate ship drew closer, searching methodically through the field. Sarah's timing would need to be perfect. Too early, and they'd give away their position. Too late, and they'd lose their advantage of surprise. "Now," Sarah commanded. Tilara's telepathic interface with the weapon systems proved devastating. Energy beams lanced out from their ship, catching the pirate vessel completely off guard. The first shots disabled their engines. The second took out their weapons array. The remaining pirate ships turned to help their leader, but Sarah was already moving. Their ship burst from the asteroid field like a predator from hiding, its liquid metal hull gleaming as it rolled through a series of maneuvers that left the remaining pirates struggling to track them. Tilara's weapons fire was precise and merciless, disabling rather than destroying, a choice that surprised Sarah. "We could eliminate them entirely," Tilara noted, sensing Sarah's surprise. "We could," Sarah agreed, executing another evasive pattern. "But disabled ships make better witnesses. Word will spread that the princess of the Nixian Empire isn't an easy target." Tilara's skin shifted to that deep blue again. "You understand political theater better than I expected, Commander." As the last pirate ship's systems went dark, Sarah allowed herself to relax slightly. They'd survived their first crisis together, and more importantly, they'd done it through cooperation rather than conflict. "We should alert the authorities," Sarah said, already preparing a broadcast. "Though I suspect our friends here will be gone before any patrols arrive." "Let them run," Tilara replied, settling back into her command chair. "As you said, their story will serve our purposes better than their capture." Sarah nodded, plotting a course back to their original trajectory. As they prepared to jump to hyperspace, she caught Tilara studying her with an unreadable expression. "Your strategy was unconventional," the princess finally said, "but effective. Perhaps there is something to be said for human intuition after all." "High praise indeed, Your Highness." "Don't let it go to your head, Commander. We still have a long journey ahead of us." As they made the jump to hyperspace, Sarah couldn't help but smile. The ice between them hadn't melted entirely, but there were definitely cracks forming. And somehow, she suspected this wouldn't be the last time they'd need to rely on each other before their journey was complete. What neither of them realized was that the pirate attack was merely a test, a probe to assess their capabilities and responses. In the shadows of space, patient eyes had watched the entire encounter, and plans were already being adjusted accordingly. The real challenges still lay ahead, stranded together. Warning: critical system failure imminent. The ship's automated alert echoed through the command center as Sarah fought with the controls. Something had gone wrong during their last hyperspace jump, terribly wrong. The ship's liquid metal hull was vibrating at a frequency that made Sarah's teeth ache, and warning lights flashed across every display. "The quantum drive is destabilizing," Talara reported, her silver eyes fixed on the telepathic interface. "We're bleeding energy into subspace." Sarah's mind raced through options. They were too far from any Alliance outposts, and the nearest Nixian colony was 3 systems away. "We need to land. Now." There, Talara projected an image of a nearby planet onto the main display. Class M atmosphere, uninhabited. "But Commander," she hesitated, "the gravitational fluctuations will make landing extremely dangerous." More dangerous than exploding in space. Sarah's hands were already adjusting their trajectory. "Hold on to something, Your Highness. This is going to get rough." The planet's atmosphere greeted them with turbulence that would have torn a lesser ship apart. The liquid metal hull screamed as it fought to maintain integrity, adapting and flowing to counteract the stress. Sarah's world narrowed to the controls beneath her fingers and the rapidly approaching ground below. Brace for impact. The ship hit hard, carving a deep furrow through a forest of alien vegetation before finally coming to rest in a clearing. For a moment, everything was silent except for the ping of cooling metal and the distant cry of native wildlife. "Your Highness," Sarah called out, already unbuckling from her chair. "Are you all right?" Talara emerged from behind a twisted bulkhead, her skin flickering between colors like a malfunctioning hologram. "I am unharmed, though I believe your definition of landing differs significantly from mine." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Any landing you can walk away from is still a crash," Talara finished, surprising Sarah with her knowledge of the human saying. At Sarah's raised eyebrow, she added, "I did study your species before this journey, Commander. Novi enemy, as your people say." "Enemy." Sarah was already moving toward the engineering section. "I thought we were supposed to be allies now." Talara followed, her tall frame ducking under damaged ceiling panels. "Old habits die hard, as you humans are fond of saying." The engineering bay was a mess of twisted metal and pulsing energy conduits. Sarah's heart sank as she surveyed the damage. The quantum drive was completely dead, its crystalline core cracked and dark. "This wasn't an accident," she said finally, pointing to a hairline fracture in one of the power couplings. "Look at this pattern. Someone sabotaged us." Talara's skin shifted to a deep crimson, a color Sarah hadn't seen before. Impossible. This ship was thoroughly checked before departure. Unless... Her voice trailed off. Unless what? Unless the saboteur was someone with high-level access to Nixian technology. Talara's expression hardened. Someone who wanted to ensure we never reached the peace conference. Sarah stood, wiping grease from her hands. "We need to get communications online. Alert both our governments about what's happened." "The communication array was damaged in the crash," Talara replied. "I cannot establish a telepathic link with any Nixian networks." "Then we do this the old-fashioned way." Sarah pulled a toolkit from a wall compartment. "We repair what we can, jury-rig what we can't, and find a way to boost the signal's strength." Talara watched as Sarah began laying out tools. "You seem remarkably calm for someone stranded on an alien world with no guarantee of rescue." "Panicking won't fix the ship." Sarah paused, looking up at the princess. "Besides, I've got the heir to the Nixian Empire to protect. Can't exactly curl up in a ball and cry, can I?" Something shifted in Tilara's expression, surprise, perhaps, or recognition. You truly take your duty seriously, don't you? Don't you? The question hung between them, heavy with meaning. Finally, Tilara knelt beside Sarah, her elegant robes pooling around her. What do you need me to do? They worked through the planet's short day and into its night, trying to cobble together a working communication system from the ship's damaged components. Sarah found herself impressed by Tilara's knowledge of engineering principles, though the princess's methods were often unconventional by human standards. Your people rely too heavily on physical connections, Tilara observed as they attempted to splice together power conduits. Nixian technology is designed to work with thought and energy. Maybe, Sarah agreed, wiping sweat from her brow. But physical connections can't be blocked by telepathic jammers. Tilara's hands stilled. You think the saboteur might have anticipated our crash? I think we need to be prepared for anything. Sarah sat back, studying their work. Someone went to a lot of trouble to strand us here. They probably don't want us calling for help. A distant roar echoed through the jungle, closer than the previous ones. Tilara's skin rippled with colors. We may have more immediate concerns. This planet's wildlife seems aggressive. Sarah checked her sidearm, standard Alliance issue, with enough charge for about 30 shots. We should set up some defensive perimeters. Take shifts watching for. She never finished the sentence. Something massive crashed through the trees at the edge of their clearing, something with too many legs and far too many teeth. Sarah was moving before she could think, pushing Tilara behind her and drawing her weapon in one fluid motion. Commander, Tilara's voice was tense. I believe I owe you an apology. Sarah tracked the creature's movement, waiting for it to charge. Oh, what for? I may have underestimated the value of human protective instincts. The creature lunged and Sarah fired, her shots striking vulnerable points in its armored hide. But there were more sounds in the darkness now, more creatures, drawn by the commotion. Your Highness, Sarah said, backing them toward the ship. I hope you're as good at fighting as you are at engineering. Tilara's skin shifted to that deep blue Sarah was beginning to associate with determination. Shall we find out together, Commander? As the night closed in around them, Sarah couldn't help but smile. They were stranded on an alien world, surrounded by hostile wildlife, with a saboteur's handiwork ensuring they couldn't easily escape. And yet, somehow, she felt more confident than she had since the mission began. Because now, finally, they were starting to trust each other. The creatures circled closer, their eyes gleaming in the darkness. Sarah and Tilara stood back to back, weapons ready, each preparing to protect the other. Whatever came next, they would face it together. And somewhere in the space between stars, their enemies were about to discover just how dangerous that combination could be. The hidden truth. Dawn broke over the alien world, casting purple light through strange, twisted trees. Sarah and Tilara stood amid the carnage from their night-long battle, surrounded by the bodies of creatures that looked like crosses between earth tigers and centipedes. They were exhausted but alive, and more importantly, they'd protected each other. Your combat skills are adequate, Tilara said, her skin still shimming with battle-ready patterns. For a human. Sarah chuckled, checking her weapon's charge, down to 3 shots. High praise from someone who just took down a monster with her bare hands. Nixian martial arts focus on using an opponent's size against them. Tilara's silver eyes flickered to Sarah's weapon. Though I admit, your projectile weapons have their uses. They made their way back to the ship, which had survived the night thanks to its self-repairing hull. Sarah immediately went to work on the communication array, while Tilara began interfacing with what remained of the ship's telepathic systems. Commander, Tilara called out suddenly, her voice tight. I found something in the ship's memory core. Sarah abandoned her repairs and joined the princess at the main console. Tilara's hands moved over the interface, pulling up fragments of data that had survived the crash. These are transmission logs, Sarah noted, studying the patterns. Encrypted, but Not with Nixian protocols. Tilara's skin shifted to a deep purple, concern Sarah had learned. These encryptions are human in origin. Sarah's heart sank as she recognized the pattern. Alliance military intelligence, high-level stuff. She met Tilara's gaze. Someone's been using your ship to spy on the Nixian Empire. Or, Tilara countered, someone wants us to think that. Her fingers danced over the console, revealing more data. Look at this coding signature. It's too perfect, too obviously human. Sarah leaned closer, her shoulder brushing Tilara's arm. She noticed the princess didn't pull away. A false flag operation, but who would benefit from making it look like humans were spying on Nixians? The same people who'd benefit from our people's remaining enemies. Tilara's voice was bitter. The arms dealers who profit from our conflicts. The political hardliners who maintain power through fear of the alien threat. On both sides, Sarah added, remembering conversations she'd overheard at Alliance headquarters. There are plenty of human officials who'd rather keep fighting than risk peace. They worked in silence for a moment, piecing together fragments of data. The picture that emerged was disturbing. A coalition of human and Nixian conspirators working together to prevent the peace treaty by any means necessary. The pirate attack, Sarah said suddenly. It wasn't just a test. They were trying to access the ship's systems, plant more evidence of espionage. And when that failed, they activated their sabotage package. Tilara's skin rippled with anger. They meant for us to die in the crash, our bodies found amid evidence of human treachery. Instead, we survived. Sarah's mind was already racing ahead, and now we have proof of their conspiracy. Proof we can't transmit without a working communication array. Tilara gestured to the damaged equipment, and even if we could, who would we trust to receive it? Sarah was about to respond when a new alert flashed across the console. Tilara's eyes widened as she read the Nixian text. A ship, she announced, coming into orbit. It's broadcasting Nixian diplomatic codes. Rescue already. Sarah frowned. That's too convenient. No one should have known where to find us yet. Agreed. Tilara's skin shifted through patterns Sarah hadn't seen before, complex swirls that suggested deep thought. They're hailing us. The console crackled to life, and a familiar voice filled the command center. Princess Tilara, this is Ambassador Kavor. We detected your crash and came as quickly as possible. Sarah watched Tilara's reaction carefully. The princess's skin had gone almost completely still, a bad sign, she'd learned. Ambassador, Tilara replied, her voice carefully neutral. How fortunate that you were in the area. Indeed, we'll send a shuttle down immediately to evacuate you. There was a pause. I trust the human survived as well. Commander Chen is here, yes. Tilara's eyes met Sarah's, and an understanding passed between them. We look forward to your arrival. The transmission ended, and Tilara immediately turned to Sarah. Kavor was one of the strongest opponents of the peace treaty. His presence here cannot be coincidence. They're coming to clean up their mess, Sarah agreed, checking her nearly depleted weapon. Make sure no evidence survives. We have perhaps 20 minutes before their shuttle lands. Tilara's skin shifted to that deep blue of determination. What do you propose, Commander? Sarah smiled, a plan already forming. How good are you at playing the stuck-up princess who hates humans? Tilara's answering smile was predatory. I believe I can manage a convincing performance. They worked quickly, hiding their discoveries and preparing their trap. As they waited for the shuttle to land, Tilara turned to Sarah. Commander, Sarah. It was the first time she'd used Sarah's given name. If we survive this, I believe I owe you several apologies. Save them, Sarah replied softly. We're not out of this yet. The shuttle's engines roared overhead, and both women straightened, falling into their roles. But something had changed between them, something fundamental and irreversible. They weren't just protector and charge anymore, not just human and Nixian. They were partners, united against a common enemy, and as the shuttle touched down in the clearing, both knew they would protect each other or die trying. The conspiracy that had meant to tear their peoples apart had inadvertently created something powerful, a bond between two people that transcended species and prejudice. Now they just had to survive long enough to use that bond to save both their worlds. The shuttle's door began to open, and the real battle for peace was about to begin. Trust and betrayal. Ambassador Kavor descended from the shuttle like royalty, his iridescent robes catching the alien world's purple sunlight. 4 guards flanked him, their weapons held casually but ready. Sarah noticed they weren't standard Nixian military. Their armor bore no official insignias. Tilara stood tall and proud, every inch the haughty princess they expected to see. Sarah remained slightly behind her, playing the dutiful but wary protector. Their evidence of the conspiracy was hidden in plain sight, encoded into the ship's damaged systems in a way only they would know to look for. Princess Tilara, Kavor bowed deeply, his skin shifting through formal patterns of concern. We feared the worst when we detected your crash. Are you unharmed? No thanks to this primitive vessel's systems, Tilara replied, her voice dripping with practiced disdain. Though I suppose I should be grateful that the humans' crude piloting skills kept us somewhat intact. Sarah kept her face carefully neutral, but inside she marveled at Tilara's performance. If she hadn't spent the last days learning who the princess really was, she would have believed every word. Yes, about the human. Kavor's eyes fixed on Sarah with poorly concealed hostility. Commander Chen, was it? Rather convenient that you managed to crash on an uninhabited world within range of our patrol route. Nothing convenient about it, Ambassador. Sarah shrugged, playing up the rough soldier act. Just trying to keep Her Highness alive long enough to reach that peace conference of yours. Kavor's skin rippled with patterns that Sarah had learned to recognize as suspicion. Indeed. Well, we should evacuate you both immediately. We've detected some rather dangerous wildlife in the area. Oh, we've met them, Tilara said smoothly. The commander proved surprisingly useful in that regard, almost as if she'd been trained for combat rather than escort duty. Sarah tensed internally. Tilara was playing a dangerous game, letting Kavor know they weren't as oblivious as he might hope. She saw the ambassador's guards shift their positions slightly, spreading out to cover more angles. Speaking of training, Kavor said, his voice too casual, I'd be very interested in hearing about your journey. Particularly that incident with the pirates. Most unfortunate. Yes, most unfortunate, Tilara agreed. Her skin shifted to display formal patterns of gratitude. But thanks to the commander's quick thinking, we prevailed. She even managed to interface with my ship's systems quite effectively. Kavor's expression hardened for just a moment before he caught himself. Fascinating. Perhaps we should continue this discussion aboard my ship. It's not safe here. Of course, Tilara gestured to the crashed vessel behind them. Though we should retrieve my personal effects first. Commander Chen, would you assist me? Sarah nodded and turned toward the ship, counting steps in her head. 3, 2, 1. Now. Tilara's mental shout rang through Sarah's mind, their practiced signal. Sarah dove and rolled as plasma bolts sizzled through the air where she'd been standing. Tilara's telepathic powers flared, throwing 2 of Kavor's guards backward into the trees. Sarah came up firing, her depleted weapon taking down a 3rd guard before clicking empty. Traitors. Kavor snarled, drawing his own weapon. You've discovered nothing that will leave this planet. We've discovered everything, Tilara replied, her skin blazing with patterns of righteous anger. Your conspiracy, your attempts to sabotage peace, your cooperation with human extremists, all of it. The 4th guard tried to flank them, but Sarah was ready. She threw her empty weapon at his head, following it with a flying tackle that would have made her combat instructors proud. They went down in a tangle of limbs, fighting for control of his weapon. Kavor leveled his weapon at Tilara, "You're a fool, princess. Peace with humans will be the death of our empire. They're violent, unpredictable, emotional. They're passionate." Tilara cut him off, her voice ringing with conviction. "They feel deeply, love fiercely, and fight for what they believe in. I've seen it firsthand." Her eyes met Sarah's for a moment, "And I've learned there's strength in that passion." Sarah finally got the upper hand on her opponent, knocking him unconscious with his own weapon. She turned to find Kavor's gun trained on her head. "How touching," the ambassador sneered. "The princess has fallen for her human pet. Your parents will be so disappointed, Tilara, assuming they ever learn what really happened here. They already know." The new voice came from Kavor's shuttle. A figure stepped out, tall, regal, bearing the unmistakable marks of Nixian royalty. Tilara's skin flashed with shock. "Mother." Queen Vela of the Nixian Empire descended the shuttle's ramp, flanked by both Nixian and human soldiers. Her silver eyes, so like Tilara's, fixed on Kavor with cold fury. "We suspected a conspiracy," the queen announced, her voice carrying the weight of authority. "But we needed proof, and thanks to my daughter and Commander Chen, we have it." Kavor's weapon wavered. "Your Majesty, I can explain." "Save your explanations for your trial." The queen gestured, and her guards moved to secure Kavor and his unconscious men. "You'll have plenty of time to discuss your views on humans then." Sarah finally allowed herself to breathe, moving to stand beside Tilara. The princess's skin was cycling through colors she'd never seen before: joy, relief, embarrassment, and something else. "You knew," Tilara asked her mother, "about all of this?" "We suspected," Queen Vela replied, "but we needed someone we could trust completely to investigate, someone whose reactions would be genuine." Her silver eyes moved to Sarah. "And someone who would protect you at all costs." Sarah felt her cheeks warm under the queen's knowing gaze. "I was just doing my duty, Your Majesty." "Were you?" The queen's skin shifted in patterns that looked suspiciously like amusement. "All of it, even falling in love with my daughter." Tilara's skin flashed brilliant colors of surprise and hope. She turned to Sarah, who found herself unable to look away from those silver eyes. Sarah started, but words failed her. "Commander Chen," Queen Vela said softly, "your actions have helped prevent a war and expose a conspiracy that threatened both our peoples. But I suspect your greatest service was showing my daughter that there are some things worth more than duty." As Kevor and his conspirators were led away, Sarah felt Tilara's hand slip into hers. The princess's skin was shifting through colors she'd never shown before, beautiful, complex patterns that spoke of emotions too deep for words. "Mother," Tilara said, her voice strong and clear, "I believe we need to revise some of the terms of our peace treaty." Queen Vela's answering smile was knowing and warm. "I believe you're right, daughter. After all, true peace must be built on more than just political alliances." Sarah squeezed Tilara's hand, feeling the princess squeeze back. They had survived conspiracy and combat, prejudice and fear. Now they faced something even more challenging, proving to both their peoples that love truly could transcend the boundaries of species and space. But looking into Tilara's silver eyes, Sarah knew they would face it together. And somehow, that made all the difference. The Guardian's Heart. Part 6. Hearts United. The grand hall of the Nixian Imperial Palace sparkled like a sea of stars, its crystal walls reflecting the bioluminescent patterns of hundreds of gathered diplomats. Sarah stood at attention near the main platform, her alliance dress uniform feeling stiff and formal after days in combat gear. Her eyes kept drifting to Tilara, who stood with her mother at the center of the proceedings. The peace conference had been delayed but not derailed. If anything, the exposure of Kavor's conspiracy had strengthened both sides' resolve to forge a lasting alliance. But today's meeting wasn't just about politics. Representatives of Earth and Nixia, Queen Vela's voice carried through the hall, her skin displaying formal patterns of authority and hope. We gather not only to sign a treaty of peace, but to celebrate a profound truth that recent events have revealed to us all. Sarah watched Tilora's skin shift through subtle patterns of emotion, pride, nervousness, determination. They hadn't seen each other much in the weeks since their rescue, both caught up in debriefings and diplomatic preparations. But every stolen moment had only confirmed what they discovered on that alien world. Their feelings were real, and they were willing to fight for them. The attempted sabotage of peace revealed something unexpected, the Queen continued. It showed us that when humanity and Nixia work together, we are capable of extraordinary things. Commander Sarah Chen and my daughter, Princess Tilora, proved this through their actions. The assembled diplomats murmured among themselves. Sarah could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes on her, some curious, some disapproving, some hopeful. But they proved something else as well. Queen Vela's silver eyes swept the crowd. They showed us that the barriers between our peoples are not as insurmountable as we once believed. That understanding, trust, and even love can bridge the gap between stars. Tilora stepped forward, her ceremonial robes flowing like liquid starlight. The old laws state that Nixian royalty must marry within our species to maintain the purity of our telepathic bloodline. I stand before you to challenge these laws, not just for myself, but for all who would choose love over tradition. A shock went through the assembled crowd. Sarah's heart pounded as Tilora's eyes found hers. Commander Chen and I faced death together. Tilora's voice rang clear and strong. We fought side by side, protected each other, learned to trust despite our prejudices, and in doing so, we discovered that the very differences we once feared could become our greatest strength. Sarah stepped forward, drawn by Tilora's words and the emotion behind them. They had planned this moment, but nothing could have prepared her for the reality of it. The human heart and the Nixian soul are not so different. Sarah addressed the crowd, her voice steady despite her nerves. We all feel fear, hope, love. We all dream of a better future for our children. Today, we have the chance to build that future together. Admiral Harrison, representing the Alliance, stood from his seat. The Alliance supports this union, both politically and personally. Commander Chen's actions have proven that humanity is ready for a deeper connection with our Nixian allies. Queen Vela raised her hands, her skin displaying patterns of joy and triumph. Then let it be known that from this day forward, the laws regarding interspecies marriage are hereby changed. Let the union of Commander Chen and Princess Tilora stand as a symbol of what our peoples can achieve together. The hall erupted in a mixture of reactions, cheers, gasps, excited discussions. But Sarah was focused only on Tilora, who had crossed the space between them with fluid grace. Well, Commander, Tilora's skin shifted through the colors that Sarah now knew meant love. It seems we started quite the diplomatic incident. Sarah smiled, taking Tilora's hand. Just another day at work, Your Highness. Though I have to admit, this beats fighting monsters and conspirators. Does it? Tilora's silver eyes sparkled with mischief. We've just challenged centuries of tradition and prejudice. Some might say that's the biggest monster of all. True, Sarah agreed, pulling Tilora closer. But this time we're not fighting alone. As if to prove her point, Queen Vela approached them, her skin displaying patterns of maternal pride. The path you have chosen will not be easy, she said softly. There will be those who oppose this change, who cling to the old ways. We know, Mother. Tilora's hand tightened in Sarah's, but nothing worth fighting for is ever easy. No, the Queen agreed, her expression softening. But the best victories are those that open hearts rather than crush them. Your love has already begun to change minds. Given time, it may change worlds. The formal signing of the peace treaty that followed felt almost anticlimactic compared to the announcement of their union. Sarah stood proudly beside Tilora as both their peoples committed to a future of cooperation and understanding. Later, in a quiet moment on the palace's observation deck, Sarah and Tilora watched the twin moons of Nixia rise over the horizon. Having second thoughts? Sarah asked, noticing Tilaura's contemplative expression. About us? Never. Tilaura's skin rippled with affection. About everything that comes next? Perhaps a few. Well, your mother was right. It won't be easy. But then again, Sarah pulled Tilaura into her arms. When has anything about us been easy? Tilaura laughed, the sound like music to Sarah's ears. True, we did have to crash on an alien planet, fight monsters, and expose a massive conspiracy before admitting our feelings. Worth it though. Every moment. Tilaura's skin glowed with the patterns that Sarah had come to treasure, the ones that meant home and love and forever. As they stood together under the alien sky, both knew that their story was far from over. There would be challenges ahead, prejudices to overcome, traditions to change. But they had already proven that love could survive crash landings, conspiracies, and the void between stars. Whatever came next, they would face it as they had faced everything else, together. And in the end, that was all that mattered.